management, or sponsors.
Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. I'm Marcia Teele, your host, and I'm so glad that you've joined us this evening. Happy New Year. Happy 2022. And I certainly wish for all of us that it will be a better, healthier, and safer year. So I was out shopping the other day, as I like to do, and I got to thinking about something. You know, men, they are pretty much experts when it comes to shopping for a car or maybe some tool, something for the garage. And women, we're pretty much experts at shopping for clothes, a dress, or maybe even kitchen appliances. But what if you need to shop for an assisted living facility or a memory care community? Would you know how to shop for one of those? Especially if you've never had that experience or that need to do that before. It can be very overwhelming. It can be confusing. How do you know where to start? How do you know what to ask, what to look for? It's so much information, and you certainly don't want to miss something. So today we're going to be talking about how to shop for a memory care assisted living. And then later, we're going to be also talking about how to visit your loved one once they are moved in to the memory care assisted living that you've chosen. So here to help me with that today is an expert. His name is Michael Brody from Michael Brody Senior Placement. Now, Michael Brody has a lot of experience. He is a licensed nursing home administrator, a certified assisted living administrator with over 25 years experience in the management of retirement long-term care communities. He also is an expert witness for independent living and assisted living for about 15 years. He also holds multiple board member positions in various healthcare organizations. And he is also a facilitator and has facilitated support groups for Parkinson's disease and for Alzheimer's disease support groups. So he has a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and I'm so glad to welcome him today to the show. Hi, Michael. Welcome and Happy New Year.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. This has been my life. The truth is, Marcia, I don't want to give away my age, but I've been in this field now for over 40 years.
Well, you're looking great, so it's good for you. Keep doing it because we all want to age well, and it looks like you've got it down there, Michael. I'm so glad for you to join us today. I've known you for a long time. I know that you have all this great experience and knowledge to share. So thank you for being here to share with us today. So we're talking about shopping specifically for an assisted living and or a memory care assisted living when families decide that it's time to start looking. But it's so daunting to know even where to start. So that's where you're going to help us today and talk about step by step some of the things that families should do to prepare to go out, to look, to analyze, and just to figure out what it is that they need. And so that's where we're at today. And I'm hoping that you can just start us off with first things first, with how to look for an assisted living community. Did we lose Michael's connection? We're having a little technical difficulty. See if we've lost Michael. Don't know if he's coming back. So let's go to a quick commercial break, see if he comes back with us. If not, it'll be on with the show. We'll be right back.
Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back to the show. We've reestablished some connection with Michael Brody. He is a senior placement. Michael Brody has lots of experience. We are still frozen up. I think, Michael, maybe he can call in to the show. We can put him on the phone. We're going to be talking today about how to choose an assisted living facility. If you are in the market for one, if you have a loved one who has a memory care issue and you can no longer care for them at home anymore, maybe they are not getting what they need. They're not being stimulated. They are maybe getting frustrated at you because you're the caregiver, and maybe you need to be separated from them so you can be a better caregiver and not do the day-to-day. So you can be more involved, overseeing their care, but letting people that are professionals actually take care of the day-to-day. So we're going to be talking about that because it's something that all caregivers need to know. They don't want to be surprised by something that maybe they didn't ask when they made their decision. And so Michael Brody is here with Michael Brody Senior Placement. Michael, do we have you back with us?
You got me back. I'm in healthcare. We're used to things going wrong at the wrong time, of course. So I came back on the website, not on the phone call. The phone call was fine, but I think the website's probably better, or the video is probably better.
Well, we see your
Hopefully
face.
that won't happen again.
Okay, well, if it does, you can call in, and we'll get you by telephone. But you mentioned something very important to start off with. We're both in healthcare, and we expect things to go wrong because inevitably they will. Something will go awry when people are caring for other people, especially when people are home and their loved ones aren't expecting certain changes. And so we always say caregivers not only need to be prepared with a plan, but they need to have a backup plan, maybe even a few backup plans, because things can go wrong, things can go awry, and things can become unexpected. So good segue, Michael, to you and your technology there. So let's start off with what does someone need to know? Start us off with how does someone begin in choosing and shopping for a memory care assisted living community?
Well, it really, certainly for me, and I think for families as well, it begins with an assessment. Um, it is very difficult for families to do their own assessment because if you're trying to assess your own loved one, whether it's your husband, wife, mother, or father, or possibly brother or sister, you have known them for all of their life and you are used to them being functional, and their patterns of behavior with you will reflect functionability. I don't know if that's a word. It'll reflect functionability. You will probably notice that they are covering, that they're losing track, with memory loss, but you tend to cut them some slack, and you tend to expect them to be at their best and just cover them or help them cover for themselves when they're not at their best. Uh, it's an interesting construct because the first thing you have to understand is that a professional assessment actually uh, actually assesses people at their worst. And the reason for that is because if they're going to move into a community, that community has to be able to take care of them, not if they're at their best behavior all the time or at their highest functional memory, but at their worst, at their lowest ability to cope, at their lowest functional memory, and sometimes at their highest level of behavioral problems that tend to reflect upon the environment around them. So exactly those things that families kind of make excuses for and say, oh, mom isn't always like this. It's usually different. Most of the time she's fine. It's just at 5 o'clock in the afternoon every day that we really have some difficulty maintaining communication and logic with her. That's the level that an assisted living actually has to provide that level of care for. So starting off with an assessment, when you have an assessment, you can probably get a reasonable idea as to where a person might belong. Now, um, uh, those of us in the industry know that many people with functional memory loss can survive very well in assisted living communities and do not necessarily need memory loss. And one of the things that I'm able to do from my experience and from my understanding both of assisted livings and memory communities is just parse that difference between people who might be able to manage in a regular assisted living community because the structure is adequate to help them uh, find their way through the day, and people who are not going to find their way through the day and are a danger or a potential danger to themselves or to other people and are not benefiting from the structure of regular assisted living and therefore need the structure of a secured community with its superior staffing, with its secured ingress and egress to the building and secured patios, and with the programs that are calibrated towards a more confused populace and a decreased cognitive function.
That's a really good tip right there, is get that professional assessment, because wouldn't it be detrimental to a person if they were placed in the wrong environment? And if everybody agrees they do need assisted living and maybe there's some memory loss, but to what degree is that memory loss? And if you place someone too high functioning into a certain memory care community, or you place someone that's too low functioning into a regular assisted living, it's not going to turn out very well, is it?
It is not. And the easiest example that I can give so that people understand, because that was a long sentence and I apologize, but the easiest example that I can give that people should understand is that you might have a person who's extremely functional, but they're not well oriented to time and place. Not all the time, sometimes they're fine, but every now and then they're disoriented to time and place, and they may think that it's time to go to work because they've forgotten that they might have retired and that they don't necessarily know where they are. And in a regular assisted living, they might walk out the front door. Safety is critical. It's got to be that first factor has to be safety. And a good assisted living will not accept somebody in an open community who is going to walk out the door because it's not good for the assisted living. It's certainly dangerous for the person. That person might be very high functioning. They may be able to do arts and crafts and socialize and bingo and lead events, but they may not be safe in an assisted living or certainly not in an independent living or certainly not even at home.
Yeah, that would be critical as a first point of deciding, what type of community. So let's say that a caregiver does get a professional assessment. They find out what level their loved one is at. They are determined that this person needs a memory care community for safety. Okay, to your point. Now that they know what they're looking for, how do they go about looking at different places? And also people should shop, should compare. When we go shopping, usually we compare lots of things. We compare, prices, we compare quality, we compare, if we like it, we compare how it looks, how it feels, how it smells. So how does someone begin if they're shopping for a memory care community, Michael?
Well, it's obviously important to visit the community, and I think that's critical. It's fine to see a community on the internet you've got to get an understanding of what that community offers, and if that community, even memory care communities, have their differences. If that community is able to take care of your loved one. So the capacity of the community is important. Visiting the community is important. Obviously, price is important because if you can't afford it, there's no point in being able to visit it if all it's going to tell you is, well, if you only had a couple of thousand more dollars, you could come here, and you can't. So all of those, in addition to the personal assessment, are going to go into what I do and into what people can do, certainly for themselves. There's also some resources that people can access. Every podcast that you have, I'm sure, talks about veterans benefits. People who are either veterans or the spouses of veterans who have served during wartime can get a benefit if they both financially qualify and if they qualify in terms of their physical and cognitive needs. And anybody with memory loss is going to qualify with regard to their cognitive needs. So it's just a question if they financially qualify. Um, there's other sources of funds. Long-term care insurance is a wonderful thing to have, and certainly is very helpful. Planning ahead is something that's very important. I have my long-term care insurance, um, and it's important for people who are aging to look at that as a possibility. So those are things. When you come into a community, um, there are lots of things to look at, and certainly with a memory community, things are very important. When you walk in, how are you received? Does the staff have their heads down? Are they watching you? Are they looking at you? Are they receptive to your visit? When you walk into the facility itself, are the people out of bed? Are they well groomed? Is their hair brushed? Um, do they look like they're well taken care of, like their general hygiene is taken care of? They're not going to be taking care of their own hygiene, and and it's important to understand that the expectation should not be that these people look like movie stars, that they have perfect makeup. they may have applied their own lipstick, okay, which is fine. Okay, but if they apply their own lipstick, their perception of themselves, if they remember to look in a mirror and if they can coordinate their hands, may not be perfect. Okay, so it's okay if things are a little off, as long as they are clean, neat, and engaged. You might want to look at the activity program to see what kind of activities are available, and you're certainly going to talk to a salesman like yourself, Marcia, um, and ask about those activity programs to see what they have that would engage, stimulate, and maintain what cognitive ability is left. The other part of the activity program, of course, is to give people a sense of satisfaction so that they can rest assured that they are accomplishing something, even if it's not the same as their accomplishment in their past history. If they are managed to accomplish something every single day, it gives them a sense of security, gives them an understanding that they belong. So the activity program is very important. Uh, how are the meals served? You may not get all of this done in an initial visit, but there's a lot of questions that you can ask with. How are the meals served? Does the food smell good? Are people engaged in the dining room? Um, okay, is it timely? Um, is it spacious, especially in these days? Um, okay, and then we move to the element of staffing. It's always good to ask what the staffing ratio is. The staffing ratio in memory care is much richer than the staffing ratio in regular assisted living. Literally double the staff, sometimes more than that. That's really what's needed. Is a much higher level of supervision and care that is called for in memory care communities. Um, 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 you may not get all of that on a first visit. I think the first visit gives you a good idea as to whether the community will fit in with what you are looking for, and then it's always worthwhile to go back to a second visit and maybe just hang out, sit around, stick around for some activities, and get a better sense of what's going on in a community. Um, so, and sometimes maybe even a third visit. Talk to the salesperson. You may want to talk to the director of nursing, possibly to the administrator, to get a sense of what they're doing as well. Um, are the staff happy? You know, I've been an administrator for a long time. I wasn't the person who delivered the care. If I didn't
Right.
keep my staff happy, what good was I? Now, could I keep all the staff happy? No, of course not. It was my job to keep the residents happy primarily, but there's a method of doing that, um, and truly, modeling good behavior, educating staff, showing them, where they could do better is fine, but keeping them happy and keeping them motivated, complimenting them. So happy staff is a very important factor in making sure that your residents get good care. Um, does the facility look unkempt? Is it is it clean? Again, keep in mind that we are talking about 20, 30, 40 people, all of whom are on the edge of daily catastrophe, okay? Because they're not necessarily in control of everything that they do each day, and they're relying upon other people to help them with all sorts of things. So the facility might not be perfect. You might find that somebody has dropped a piece of paper or a spoon, but in general, is the facility clean? Is it light and bright? Is there access to the outside? Um, and without getting into the fact that it's not going to be perfect, does it look like a nurturing environment for people? Um, and then in this day and age, of course, you would always ask, what are the protocols with regard to COVID? They're pretty much universal. And assisted livings, amongst other healthcare facilities, have done truly an admirable job. Um, I think everybody was very confused at the beginning of COVID. We're 2 years into this at this point, and I will tell you that assisted living communities are amongst the most hygienic and clean environments out there. Period. I mean, forget Walmart and Publix and other places. If you want to go to a place that's actually really protective, um, you can go to those assisted living communities or memory care communities because they do a phenomenal job because they have to. Got a lot of vulnerable people in there together. You really have to try to take care of them. But you can definitely ask those questions. What are the protocols? How do you allow, what kind of visitors do you allow into the building? Do you require for all of your staff to be vaccinated? Do you require for any resident moving in to be vaccinated? I think that's not. I think no place actually requires residents to be vaccinated. They encourage it, but staff, there are some places that require staff to be vaccinated. Some places that just encourage staff to be vaccinated. Um, but in general, it's a very, very healthy environment. What does housekeeping do that they didn't used to do? Okay, and you'll see that every place has elevated their approach to infection control far beyond what it ever was before. So they're pretty good places to be.
Yeah, good points. Everything you said was spot on. Very good tips, very good ideas for people to learn about and take note of looking for assisted living memory care community. So that being said, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be giving away a free book. So stay tuned. We'll be back. Get a paper and pencil so you won't miss the free book offer. And we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Communities. Arden Courts is a memory care community and assisted living that has about 50 communities all across the United States, 10 of them right here in Florida where I am. And Arden Courts not only takes care of the people with memory loss, their residents, they also take care of the family. The family becomes like an extended family. And Arden Courts is there to support you, to answer your questions, to help you all along the way of your caregiving journey. One of the things that Arden Courts would like to do today is give you this free book just because you're watching our show. This book is called The 36-Hour Day. It's an awesome resource for family caregivers. It explains all types of things regarding Alzheimer's and other dementia. It gives you tips, it gives you definitions, it gives you scenarios. It's just wonderful. So if you're a caregiver and you don't have this book, I strongly urge you to get it. And it's absolutely free today. All you have to do is request it by sending an email to delray@arden-courts.com. Give them your name, address, and telephone number. Tell them that you heard about the free book offer on the Caregiver Solution Info Show, and they'll be happy to mail a book right to your home. Again, that email address is delray, DELRAY, at Arden, ARDEN, -courts, COURTS.com. And do it today. If you are a family member and you're dealing with this struggle with caregiving, or you know someone who is, they would be very, very happy to receive this book. So do it today, don't delay, and you can learn more, because an educated caregiver is a better caregiver. So today we're speaking to Michael Brody of Michael Brody Senior Placement. He has over 25 years experience in the long-term healthcare arena, both in nursing homes and assisted livings. He sits on many boards of healthcare service organizations. He's a support group facilitator. And he's just full of information, expertise, and knowledge. And we're having him today to talk about how to choose an assisted living or memory care community if you need one. And thank you, Michael, for all of that good information. So I have a few questions to tag on to what you told us in the first half of our show. You were talking about visiting various communities, setting up a tour. Is it a good idea to bring somebody with you when you tour? And if so, how many people should you bring? Should you bring the whole family? Should you bring, the siblings of the person you're bringing? Who should you bring, and how many should you bring, if any?
That's a good question. I tend to leave that up to the client to try to figure out. I don't think it's a great idea to deluge a memory care community with a whole lot of visitors. It may be difficult, but family decisions are family decisions, and this is a difficult decision. Um, where I've had families that have had multiple involved children, where they hadn't really designated one particular child as the process leader or decision maker, um, it has definitely been okay for people to visit, but possibly not all together. It might be better sometimes, if you've really got, if it's two children, no problem. But I've had six children, and wonderful family, and all involved, and everybody wanted to be involved, and they weren't fighting and arguing. But they had differences of opinion, um, and they visited on not all six together, but sometimes one at a time. That's pretty arduous for a senior placement agent, or certainly pretty arduous for the marketing person, because you're kind of running the same tour over and over again. But it is part of the process of a very, very challenging time and difficult decision. Um, and so I wouldn't I wouldn't judge on either fashion. It is certainly easier to start off, and I'm a strong believer in the process of trying to pick a community. Even if I think I know where somebody fits in best, I will rarely, if ever, I think once a year perhaps I will say, look, this is the only community that fits that checks off all the boxes that you have set out. Otherwise, I'm typically going to take a person to three communities, so that there are choices, and sometimes more than that. And the reason is that, um, so again, just consider if you've got half a dozen people trying to go to multiple different communities, it's almost impossible to figure out the schedule for that. It helps if there's just one, maybe two people who are going. I also take people in my car. My car would really only comfortably fit three people. I have very often taken three people, including the client, on initial tours. Um, but usually, when we're talking about memory care, the client herself is not necessarily part of that initial tour. It's typically the supportive family members who are coming on tour. Um, the process is important because as people see more and more iterations of some similar environments in how to take care of people, they get a better sense of what they're looking at, so that they can then, if there's three places, they can pick a favorite, or they can pick two favorites, and then bring mom or dad to that community and say, what do you think? Uh, so it is important to give that client a choice, if at all possible. So the choice might be sort of yes or no, and we're kind of helping manipulate that decision to be a yes decision. But certainly you want to have some buy-in from the client themselves, who's going to become the resident, as taking part in that decision, unless they are so confused that involving them is just is really a hopeless case. Um,
Well, I
so
totally agree with what you said about not having a big entourage of people coming in, a big group for various reasons. And one, it can be distracting not only to, the other residents and the staff, but the families might not even pay attention because they're so busy talking to each other. They're interacting with each other. They're not really listening or watching, and they're going to miss some things. So I had a family that they wanted to bring their dad in, and they had three sons. And what happened was each son with his own wife would come in separately. And then once they all took the tour, they got together as a family roundtable, and they all shared their observations, the pros, the cons, to make that final decision, which I think is a good way to do it, because when you take a tour, people are going to see different things on different days, different times of day. There's going to be different residents that you're going to observe. So I thought their process was an excellent way to do it. You brought something up, and I want to address that a little bit further too, about probably not involving the person with memory loss in the decision making if they're very confused, if they're depending upon their personality. And I think that's a case by case scenario. And I want to discuss that a little bit with you, because you've been there, I've been there, and the family may have narrowed down their choice to one or two places, and now they want to bring mom or dad or grandma to the place to say, hey, what do you think? And they're hoping grandma or mom or dad are going to say, oh, I love it, this is great, yes, let's move here. And I would say 9 times out of 10, it's not going to go that way, because grandma or mom or dad or whoever they're bringing is going to have a sense of reality is kicking in. And even though they may have agreed to move from their house to an assisted living prior, all of a sudden they get scared, and all of a sudden they're like, nope, nope, nope. And it could be the Taj Mahal, it could be every and anything you want it to be, and they're going to say, no, I am not coming. And what happens is then that just destroys everything that the power of attorney or the responsible party has done up until that point, because they are waiting or wishing that this potential resident is going to agree with them. And I've had that happen. And so I don't necessarily invite the potential resident for that reason, but they have, and it's a case by case. So what's your experience on that, Michael?
It's varied, but it senior placement is sometimes the art of the possible. Okay? You try not to do things that are impossible. If you have somebody that is predictably going to walk into your front door, especially in a memory care community, not so much in assisted living or independent living, but especially in a memory care community, they're going to walk in, they're going to say, but these people are old. I'm not old. And of course, they're not oriented to time. They don't really have a good sense of how old they are. And then they're going to say, but these people are confused. I'm not confused. Well, I can assure you, if they're walking through your door, they are confused. Okay, and we know that, and or their judgment is impaired. There may be people who are higher function than they are. There may be people who are lower function. So yes, you might get a negative reaction. Will it blow things apart? That's a good question. It sometimes depends on how you handle the process. If you have good family agreement on getting mom into a community, then you might be taking a step forward and a step back and a step forward again. It's okay to take that step back. It's okay to say, hey, mom, I know how you feel about this, but we're going to try this as an experiment. There are little white lies that you may need to talk about in the actual process of getting a person to move, even if they don't want to move. One of those little white lies is for the moment, until the doctor says you're better. Just while we're tenting the house for termites. Um, okay, just while we go away on vacation, so there's someone to watch over you, okay, until we come back, and so on and so forth. Okay, or or these are the doctor's orders. It's fine to throw the doctor under the bus. I hope there's no doctors listening to me right now. It's fine to throw the doctors under the bus. It's the family relationship you want to maintain. Blame someone else. Blame me. I've sacrificed myself on many a situation for conflicts and things like that. Once everyone in the family is agreed, and once it's obvious, because no one likes to twist anybody's arm to come in. There are admissions that are going to be problematic. There are people who are going to literally climb the walls to get out um, when they feel that they are unfairly incarcerated. I don't know, in their mind they're not, but in their mind they're unfair, and that when they're confused enough, that will go away. The more confused a person is, and especially when people are confused with regard to time or place. I'm not talking so much about person because that tends to stay a long, long time. But when they're confused about time and place, eventually, and by eventually in fairly short order, they will not necessarily remember where they were before, how long they have been residents, um, and that will precipitate much quicker adaptation than you might think. Uh, so it's uh, uh, it's nice to think that that everyone's going to be easy and compliant, but not everybody is. Um, and I have not coordinated this with you, Marcia, but it's not. I will tell you that Arden Courts is one of those places that is able to take care of people who are not compliant. They're not the easygoing, easy to help, easy to redirect people that have significant memory loss. They present sometimes significant problems, and kudos to Arden Courts for being not just willing to take care of them, but actually having the capacity, the ability, and the staff that are trained to take care of them. Not all memory care communities do.
Well, thank you for that.
And I did not coordinate this ahead of time. So
No, you didn't. But thank you for those kind words, for that support, for those compliments, because I think a lot of it has to do with the staff and not just the policies and procedures, but the whole environment. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but certainly for the actual caregivers that are taking care of somebody too, because you mentioned earlier that if the caregivers that are caring for the residents are happy, you're going to have happier residents. And I think that speaks to not just keeping your residents happy through your staff, but it's because of the staff's longevity. And we didn't mention that, but I do want to point that out, that one of the things I think is important is looking for longevity of staff, because these are the people, they have the hardest job ever, in my opinion, in the memory care or assisted living communities. It's the hands-on staff. And if they're there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, doing the same job over and over and over again and doing it well and happy doing it, then you can be assured that your loved one's going to be getting great care, because these people are there because they want to be there. They're there because they have a heart for what they do, and they enjoy their job, and they enjoy helping others, and so they stay. And they certainly wouldn't stay if they didn't enjoy it so much, and they certainly wouldn't stay if they weren't doing a good job, that they would be let go. So I think a lot of that is the experience, which is so important when you're trying to redirect a difficult resident. You're trying to communicate with them so that as to keep giving them the support they need, the self-esteem, elevating their quality of life. And it all has to do with experience, because I think you can train people all day long, but if they haven't been in the trenches and they don't have that experience, I mean, like, you are full of wisdom, but you have been in the trenches, and so you have that experience to go with that knowledge, and that's why you're here as our expert tonight. So I wanted to bring that up. But before we go, we don't have a whole lot of time, but I did want to get in to talking about, once someone does find the place that they decide to move their loved one in, and they go through that process, and now their person is in a community, memory care community, I'd like to talk about how the family would visit that person. So we talked about visiting assisted livings as a shopper looking for one. And now let's talk about visiting that particular assisted living as the family member, because it's totally two different things. And now you're there visiting. And what is the best way to visit? How does someone go about doing that? How long should they do it? How often should they do it? And what should they do while they're there? So, Michael, what do you think?
Okay, so I've got lots of fun things to do. First of all, I'm a big fan of donuts, not for your loved one, but for the staff. Um,
Donuts.
when I when I follow up now, I know they're not healthy and they're probably not recommended by the CDC, but when I'm visiting my loved one, and frankly, if I'm visiting a placement in an assisted living, I'll bring donuts for the staff. Um, and sometimes I'll make sure that I'm on the second shift so that I'm bringing donuts for the staff on the second shift because they can tend to get a little more neglected. Um, okay, so that's for the staff. Now, for your loved one, it's probably not critical how many times you visit. It's probably not critical how long. It's definitely not critical how long you visit for. It may be more important how often you visit, but probably not how long you visit for. And you want to bring with you the activity that you can share with your loved one in the community. That activity could be music. You could bring a tape deck or a recorder. You might have those set up in the room. Certainly, there's an activity area where they have music that you could probably just share and play. You could sing those songs that you have shared that are in common. Probably the songs that your mother or father sang to you as a child. You could sing right back. Hey, Mom, you taught me this one down by the old mill stream. You can definitely sing that together. It's people will probably remember that or other songs. Keeping in mind that the songs that we grooved on when we were teenagers are not the songs that our parents grooved on when they were teenagers. You need to bring yourself back a generation uh, to their music more than to your music, unless they were very, very hip and transcended their own generation, which is possible. Bring pictures so that you can look at the pictures either of them when they were younger or of the family, the children, the grandchildren, and you can just go down the list and remind them whose name is what and how old they are now. They may or may not remember, but it does give you something that you're sharing that is precious to talk about. When you're doing all of this, because of cognitive deficit, it's really important to speak slowly, um, short sentences, and to be directly in front of somebody, not talking to them from the side, unless they only have one good ear. Not talking to them from the side, and certainly not from behind. If they are wheelchair bound, then you want to be seated. You don't want to be standing up and, if I can demonstrate, okay, looking at them like this. Um, you kind of want to be down on their level, looking at them straight in the eye, and you want to engage their attention, which is at best going to be flighty because people who have memory loss have have a hard time maintaining their focus on one thing for more than a few minutes at a time. So um, you can also bring some other. You can certainly bring some. Food is fine to bring. It's perfectly okay to keep two of those donuts. If you're visiting your loved one, have one. Say, oh yeah, I'm sorry, it's a dozen donuts, but you might find only 10 in the box. Um, but you could always buy two more. So that's a little bit classier. And they're only donuts. And share a donut. Obviously, not if it's not um, advised by the doctor. If you've got an issue with diabetes or something similar, you may not want to go that route. Maybe some more healthy food stuff would be better. Um, it's probably helpful if you are in a quiet room, so not in the middle of everything where there are multiple stimuli. I don't know about you, but if I'm in the middle of the room with people talking from either end, I can't hear anything that's going on, uh, and and uh, and my hearing is, according to the audiologist, pretty intact. So keep in mind that they're going to have difficulty not just hearing, but comprehending what it is that you are saying. It might be okay to read together. You could bring an article from the newspaper that might be interesting, and you could read them. And for people who are become more impaired, physical touch is probably going to become crucial. Um, you can brush somebody's hair. You can massage their hands with oil. You can do their nails. These are all things, by the way, that the nursing assistants will be doing with him on a regular basis. But hey, it's going to be different if your family member does that with you. There's probably no greater expression of love, than that close physical touch. And yes, hugging and kissing. Um, Even in the age of COVID, probably you want to break that 6 foot barrier with your loved one and give them a hug, because these things are tough to come by. Older people in general and people with memory care definitely suffer from a lack of physical closeness, as do we all now, and we all feel it. Well, that's probably normal for them. Um, it's if at all permissible, and if they don't have COVID, break that barrier and do it. You also have to respond to the directives of the community if they've got directives with COVID in terms of meeting places. They will tell you how and where to meet people. And probably in this day and age, it's in their room, which fulfills a lot of the things that I've recommended.
Well, those are all wonderful tips. I love them all. I think the last one is probably the best. When you don't know what to say, just hold their hand, just stroke their arm, just look in their eyes with love, give them a hug. I think, like you said, we all need hugs and love, and we, you can't get too much of that, right? And we're all starved for that, being isolated and not being able to be around people, and more so, like you said, for people that are living in communities where they don't get to see you all the time. Michael, you have been a pleasure to talk with. I have enjoyed it. You have explained things and given so much great advice. And I want to thank you for being here. If someone wants to connect with you, if they're wanting to ask you more questions, can they contact you? And if so, how?
Of course. My cell phone is 305-542-6303. Again, 305-542-6303. And my email is pretty much self-explanatory. It's MB, that stands for Michael Brody, mbseniorplacement@gmail.com.
Okay, and one more time on your phone, because I think that you have probably raised a lot of questions that people would like to talk about. And can you give us your phone number one more time, please?
Sure, 305-542-6303. And may I say one more thing? You don't have to be seeking placement to call me. I talk to people all day long. They're not all seeking communities. They're not all. Some of them are exploring the decisions. Some of them want to know a little bit more. Some of them have already placed their loved one and they've got some questions. Some of them are looking for nursing homes or rehab communities, or trying to figure out what to do. Um, and I've been a resource for people for a long time, well beyond senior placement duties. So it's always my pleasure.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Hope to see you again soon. And thank you for tuning into the show, whether you're on www.caregiversolutions.info, iHeartRadio app under WNN, or on one of several Southeast Florida radio stations. I'm so glad that you were here today. We will be back next Tuesday, 6 o'clock p.m., with another wonderful program to educate caregivers. So let them, let everybody know about it, because it's a new year and there's new caregivers born every day. So thanks again for watching. Take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for